relates to our topic tonight. Our title in getting this booster mess to a thriving success, I saw a quote from Joan Gary. She's a famous author of nonprofit leadership and an activist in the nonprofit world. And she says, nonprofits are just messy. And I said, well, sister, if you think nonprofits are messy, you haven't been around a school booster club program, because we're just a mess. And there's a lot to that. So, we're messy. And there's a lot of reasons why we're messy, because it's a big puzzle, isn't it? There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's a complex design with lots of moving pieces that never seem to stop. And then it's run by a bunch of volunteers. So it's going to be messy, right? Because all you've worried about before you got engaged as a booster ambassador is about your kid. And now suddenly your lens and focus is spreading to look at just your child, but the full team, the full family of support here. So I started doing some thinking and research, and you've heard me the last couple of months if you've been joining us, that I would spend lots of summers thinking and analyzing and doing things. And I thought, okay, well, our booster club's good and we're doing really well, but our program is growing. And at that point, we were like the largest state in the school, the largest school in the state of Georgia. And we had like 3,500. Now that compared to our schools in Houston, there were like 4,000 students. We weren't quite that large, but for us, it was growing. And then that means the needs of our kids were growing. And so it really caused me to look around and try to look at our flagship programs and the Sudler Flag of Honor programs and our groups at Midwest and at Grand Nationals. And so I noticed a couple of things, that they were all extremely passionate, right? That's no big surprise. All of you are passionate. That's why you're here, investing in your time. Those flagship programs had methods, and they were methodical in what they did and had systems in place throughout the program. And there was strategy to what they were doing. It wasn't just, we all show up at the band room and we get stuff done. And to be honest, that's kind of where we were as an organization, where we kind of had some really good stuff happening and people were just kind of going along. And there were 3 or 4 parents that were getting it all done. And then crisis hit for us when one of those legendary parents graduated. I mean, her kid graduated, but that means in the booster club, she graduated, right? And so she'd been there for like 10 years. She'd been there longer than I'd been at that time. And she knew way more about the booster club than I did. And so we didn't have much strategy. We were just doing what we were doing to survive, because the program was about 10 years old about that. At that point, the school was about 10 years old. And so I just started thinking, okay, then we've got to get some method to this madness. We've got to get a strategy. So when you Google it, it's a plan of action or policy design. And so I started thinking about, okay, well, we definitely passion. Yeah, we got that. I was passionate. The parents were passionate, but we didn't quite have a system in place. And we certainly didn't have strategy. So we began to tackle that monster, if you will, and started to figure out, okay, what kinds of systemic progress. And that's when I started saying, okay, well, a booster club is really, I went and spent the whole summer in Barnes & Noble and really read a lot of books. And when I came to the conclusion that we are an event planning business. Okay, so my modern definition for our music teachers that are out there today, the modern definition of a music educator is a CEO of a people-oriented small business with a serious music problem. Okay, now I'm serious about my music making. Okay, don't get me wrong, but here's the reality. I had, at the peak of our growth, we had 11 performing ensembles, a competitive marching band, nationally competitive marching band, Grand Nationals, the top wind ensemble playing at Midwest, and 2 ensembles at the National Concert Festival, 3 winter guards, and 2 percussion ensembles. That took more of a machine, and that was certainly not what the school board could support, right? We had to find ways to make that army occur. And so that's really where we said, okay, we've got to develop a system and become more strategized and engage strategy and be more intentional, like a business, event planning business, and how we're going to get this done. And so the 6-step process is that there's community, There's engaging in relationships. We talked a lot about that last month. And there's a business blueprint and developing those for all the things that we do as an organization. And then there's governmental compliance. And oh my gosh, that'll make your head spin. Next month, we're going to talk about 6 ways to lose your nonprofit status and not even know it. Okay. So that's all about government compliance. And then there's the fundraising element of it. And it's like, have you ever woken up and gone, oh my gosh, the magazine sale is supposed to start tomorrow? It's like, what do we do? Right. Okay. So how do we get strategic in our fundraising? And then how do we become effective in our communication? That becomes really difficult in the modern era because there's so many channels and so many methodologies. But it takes, if you notice the graphic, it's the strategy that connects them all together. So we've got to get strategic in what we do and not just be thankful if we survive, if we want to move from good to great. And why do we want to do that? Because your kids deserve it, don't they? They're the ones that benefit. The more effective we become, the more support you can provide for your directors, the more support you can provide for the teachers and the students of the program, then that's where the win-win comes. Okay. So there's 3 fundamentals as we focus in. There's a great story about the great coach Lombardo, and he went through and he was sharing, and it was after the big, amazing season, and he was rebuilding, and he's like, this is a football. Okay. Well, yeah, we know it's football, but that's the reality. We have to break things down to the obvious and really focus on the fundamentals. Think about it. That's what we do all day long in music. We build the scale. Okay. There's great research out there that Tim was talking about, that when that mylar regeneration starts happening, at one point you're thinking about that scale, B flat, C, D, E flat. And then suddenly your child's like, oh my gosh, they've been making the most awful noise forever. And suddenly you go, you know what, Judy? I can, like, that sounds pretty cool. They're going, they can play all this cool stuff. It's because we focus on the fundamentals, and we need to do that with our band programs too. So there's 3 I want to give you. They've got alliteration, okay, message, method, and mission, right? Say that out loud with me. Message, method, mission. We've got to focus our message. And then TJ was talking a little bit about that earlier tonight, about being ambassadors and sharing our message and making sure we're ready with our 30-second infomercial. And we've got our mission statement. Some of us need to develop mission statements, okay? But then we have to have a method to our madness. We have to put systems in place so that we can then launch our mission and be effective in our mission. So message, method, mission. And we've got to do that through a plan. So building a plan is what it takes to thrive. So when we have our message and our method and our mission, that's going to get us to thriving success. Okay. And so the level in which your program goes from good to great is dependent on how strong we focus on these fundamentals and how we apply a plan to it. And that's really hard to do right now today, because you're in the midst of marching band for many of you, right? And you're in the first semester back after a really long period of not, hopefully most of us are face-to-face now, okay? But it's also the best time to start thinking about it. So the messaging is about our core values and our mission statement. And I can tell you, even when we had our mission statements, we'd start with our students. We had them develop the mission statements, and then we worked on it from an organizational standpoint. But there was a long period of time that even we had mission statements and core values, we didn't do a very good job at all about sharing it. How many of you, I just wonder, how many of you walked in as a freshman and had no clue about what the organization was about? All you knew is that you had better been there, and this was the most full your calendar has ever been in your entire educational history as a parent when you walked into marching band. But think about it. If we had our core values and our mission, and we could tell you as a freshman parent when you walked in the door, this is why you're here, this is why we need you, and you're sharing that message from the beginning, that changes the engagement from the beginning, right? That sets the stage for us to build our community, start building those relationships strategically. Okay. And then we've got to develop systems and come up with our business blueprint for every fundraiser, for every entity of the organization, whether it's going to be our spring banquet, that's a little micro event that we need to plan, whether it's going to be, the Booster Club meeting in March. Why should people come in March, right? We all get a good crowd in the beginning, but are you giving people a reason to come in January? All right. So that takes planning, that takes preparation. Compliance, making sure that we're doing all those things throughout the year. Are we 1099ing contract people to come in and work with our students for more than $599 a year? Are we being strategic in our fundraising? Are we doing the same fundraiser we've always done, but haven't modified it? Or we used to do it and make a lot of money, but now there's two other entities nearby and the schools nearby or different businesses are doing something similar, and now our profit's not quite where it needs to be. We're being strategic in building those models in our fundraising. And then when it comes to our mission, collaborative action. Do we have 3 or 4 people trying to do all the work? There's lots of reasons that can happen. It's pretty common in booster clubs. That's probably the number one question I get across the country is, how do you get more people involved? Well, you have to define the roles and responsibilities. You have to match people. We talked about that last month, didn't we? Matching their responsibilities of the job to the skill sets of the people and making it safe for them to have that positive experience so they'll do that again, right? So we have to have collaborative action in building our strategic plan so there's buy-in, right? And we start focusing on that. And then we have to communicate our mission, communicate what we're doing in such a way that we are not just getting the work done, but we're engaging others and we're inviting them into our process. And then as a community, they all know what the amazing work that you're doing and how valuable your program is for you. And that way, when the budget cuts come, they're not going to dare touch your program because look at what you're doing for kids. We wouldn't dare fight that political strategy. That would not be a win-win. Okay. So that's an opportunity for us. And it's all of that wrapped up into our strategic plan. Okay, we have those in our schools in school improvement. How are we going to get all of that happening? Well, if we're going to move from good to great, or we're going to just do more than just survive for the sake of our kids, we need a plan to thrive. So the strategic plan is a 9-part system. Okay, there's the purpose, the core values, and the mission statement. Now, some of you probably have those, but it's probably been a while since you've revisited those, okay? And making sure that, are we all focusing everything to that? And then we've got goals and strategies and action plans. And I'll be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, I would say of the groups that I've consulted with, when we get, probably half of them have core values or mission statements, at least a mission statement, okay? But less than 10% are making sure that what they do and their goals of their organization point back to the mission statement and people know why they're doing it and why we're choosing what we're doing. Okay. So our strategic plan has goals that are based on what our partners in education, our CEOs, our music teachers, what their vision is and how we support them as a partner in education, as a booster club, and what strategies are we going to use intentionally to make a difference and do something on purpose today, this week, this month to make the program better for our kids. And so those take strategies. And then here's the thing. Have you ever been in a booster club meeting, an executive board meeting, and you go, Groundhog Day, whoop, we were here last month talking about the same thing. Nothing got done anymore this month than last month. Yeah, because this is the key element that most of us forget, the action plans, okay? And then we've got to, once we get the action plans done and we develop the meat of it, we have to monitor it to make sure that it's getting done. That's the other part of it. Just because you launch a project or you launch a goal and you've assigned someone the task, how's it going? Let's monitor it so that we can evaluate what's happening. Did it work? Did it not? And let's adjust. And then let's make sure that we improve in that process as we go. Now, notice the groupings in the colors here, all right? It's going to be, you got to start with the first 3. And then the in-depth part comes and the really digging in, the collaborative action happens in 4, 5, and 6. And you know what? The 4, 5, and 6 may just be 2 big picture, 3 picture goals the first year that you develop your strategic plan. And so for me at Harrison, we've focused on the 3 things that would make the biggest impact on the program. Okay. And we're going to talk about that in a second, but start there. And when we had 11 performing ensembles, we didn't have anything in our first strategic plan the first year that had anything to do with jazz band. It's not because we didn't care about jazz band, but you got to start somewhere, and then you build and you grow and you add to the strategic plan as you can, right? So it takes 3 to 5 years to get that done. So here's the steps in collaborative action. Okay. We have to start in developing our strategic plan. We have to reflect on who we are. Okay. Then we have to imagine big. I call it Disney big, right? Disney's the best at imagining what's possible. And then with the guidance of your school personnel, they're the ones hired by the school board, right, to lead in the direction of the vision. Then we have to decide, okay, well, this is what's possible. It may take 5 years, it may take 10 years, but what's really doable within the resources we have now, okay? And then what's best next? Peter Ferrito is a great sports psychologist and worked with lots of marching bands, competitive marching bands, and he really helped us refine our process working with student leaders. But Peter always challenged our student leaders, and I in turn took it and challenged our booster clubs and part of the booster system with this question: what's best next? There's lots of doable things, but the really great companies analyze and decide, okay, well, there's 5 things we could do, but which one of these 5, if we do next, is going to get the most growth? And then what should come next after it? So what's best next has to be decided, right? And we prescribe the solutions in that order. And then the strategies where all the work happens. What action does it take to get that done? It's kind of like a gap analysis, right? So where are you is the current state. And on the right side of the picture is where you want to be. And you develop your strategic goals and your objectives. And then your action items are what gets you from where you are to where you want to be. What has to happen, the what, how, when, and who needs to do it. And that's where we, as an organization, develop accountability, right? Okay, and so then here's a list of that accountability. Once we get the strategic plan and we get all the details down, then we can say, okay, well, if we're trying to get all of our roles and responsibilities defined so we know who we need and what personalities that we talked about last month, we can start aligning those people together. So one of our objectives is to define all those things, right? And Jamaica is going to work on that, and Kim and Simeon are going to work on that. And then Ivan's going to work on the section liaison candidates. And there's deadlines. And then look at the cool color coding stuff. You've got red lights, green lights, and yellow lights. And we can quick in a board meeting figure out where are we, what's being done, what's left, and if there's a crisis. We can talk about that new in our board meeting together so that the board meetings don't last forever and we get something actually done, right? And that's because we have a plan. Okay, so turning our potential into performance means we've got to focus on our community, our blueprints, our compliance, our fundraising, our communication, all of that strategically, and developing a plan so that our message can be delivered with a successful methodology so that the mission and the work can be effectively done and truly thrive. Strategic planning. That's the key. Now, wow. Well, how do we do all that? Well, I'm pumped. This is Dr. Tim mentioned he and I have been thinking about and brainstorming for years, and you are here tonight as part of that with the third Wednesday booster webinars and the support of ConSummer to do this. But over the pandemic, we've developed a new entity of, okay, well, how can we help parents? Okay, we've been doing strategic booster institutes live in person for about 10 years, but that's limited access. We can only get people, certain times of the year to travel and do all that. And so I'm thrilled to announce tonight, you're the first people to hear about it. We've saved the release for you tonight. For the first time in history, we now have a way to train your entire team in a virtual online session. So we've got over 60 videos in Strategic Booster Academy that your entire team can take and learn how to develop the strategic plan, break it all down for you. And then we have master classes in each of the steps of community and business blueprints and compliance, fundraising, communication. And Beth's going to give you a quick little video to tell you a little bit about it. But I have to stop sharing, I bet, to do that, right? Here we go.
Join David Vanderwalker from Strategic Musication, founder of the Strategic Booster System and executive director for the Consumer Parent Booster community, as he launches the Strategic Boosters Academy. Created in partnership with Consumer Institute, the Academy provides online training for booster clubs and the incredible people who lead them. You can train your entire team with one group subscription plan with the flexibility to learn independently or as a group. Members of the Strategic Booster Academy have access to 60 micro video lessons and Dr. Vanderwalker's Strategic Booster Video Course Guidebook. Grow your existing booster club into a thriving organization or launch a booster group for the first time. With built-in community support and David's time-tested proven strategies, the Strategic Boosters Academy can help your organization turn potential into performance. Learn more about the various membership plans available to meet the needs of your entire team through the link below. And welcome to the Strategic Boosters Academy.
So I'm really excited about this because, there's no more need necessarily to take time off from work and no time you don't have to spend money for a hotel or getting your team together and organized. And what I really like about and most excited about this is that now we have an opportunity. If you want to come together on a specific topic, then you can meet together independently and work on it, or you can come together in the band room or the orchestra room and watch 2 or 3 videos together and talk about it and work on it and collaborate together. And so there's just so many possibilities. And so really want to thank Dr. Tim and Consumer and their support in this project. I'm really excited about the opportunity to share with you and your teams in that regard.